What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? And welcome to the latest episode of Unlocking Excellence with your main man, Eric Schwefel. Y'all, we are continuing our interviews with my recent clients, and today we have a special guest. Before I introduce him, though, welcome to Unlocking Excellence, where we have tips, tricks, and keys to help you unlock excellence and the best version of yourself. I like to switch up the tagline every time I come in. Speedy, what's going on? How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Appreciate you asking. I'm grateful to be here at what I feel is like the finish line, but really just the beginning of the winner circle of this program. Man, it was quite a journey.
Hell yeah. So, y'all, welcome to Walter Speedy Gonzalez. Walter and I, Speedy, we started working together at the end of May, I believe was our first. Yes, the end of May was our first call. And it's like you said, right? It's the finish line to the end of this journey, but it's really the beginning. And I can't
Yeah,
wait to help our audience and the person listening to understand what that means, because it's like a whole new journey has set forth, right? It's you got the baby legs like the baby deer. Um,
yeah,
so without further ado, let's just straight dive in because our relationship started as a coaching relationship. We didn't really know each other about each other before this relationship. I believe we got connected through our accountant, and as soon as you heard or you knew about the NLP, you knew it was something that you wanted to do because of something in the past. So if you could tell me a little bit about um, that process and then what you were struggling with before starting the program with me.
yeah. So the reason I reached out is because I might be a lot like a lot of your listeners and a lot of people watching. I've always been into self development, right? The books, Tony Robbins, all the so I hate the word self help because it's I've never liked that phrase. That phrase I prefer self development.
Mm-hmm.
So self development has always been a journey of mine. But everything I would experience, everything I've done, all the books I read, all the steps I took, I always came around to okay, this is all awesome. You go to sleep, you're fired up, and you wake up and you feel like the same old person. And I know from the self development work that I did do, I heard about NLP. I've looked into it. I got a book on it, Psycho-Cybernetics. Read the book. Honestly, it was like reading ancient Greek. Now I'd probably have a much better understanding of that book, and I'd like to revisit it now. But yeah, I saw a post on Facebook about my homegirl Esther talking about what she was doing, and I was like, all right, well, look, what do I have to lose? Like, I've read all the books, I've attended seminars, I've watched all the Eric Thomas motivational stuff, which don't get me wrong, I love that stuff, and I still watch it to this day. But I was like, there's got to be, what am I not getting? What is not? I'm not having the breakthrough because do all the stuff, I watch all the videos, and I wake up feeling the same way the next morning. So that's what prompted me to get in touch with you to see, if there was some way I could figure out, get to the breakthrough.
100%, 100%. And where we're at in the world in Louisiana, right outside of New Orleans, personal development is kind of, in my opinion, it's entrepreneur reserved. You don't see too many people in this space, right? Now, there's certain fields that kind of call for it, like the realty space, the health and fitness space, and a few other spaces just like this. But what's challenging is to, for me at least, continue on that path because the community isn't there, the support isn't there. So once you heard, well, we got on the call. So what was it that you were looking to uh, do when you heard of this? You knew about NLP, but what
Yeah.
about NLP in this program really called you to pick up the phone, text, and get in contact?
Well, I was sick of myself. I was
Mm,
tired of being,
mm,
I was tired of being me
yeah.
at that time. And
Mm,
so that was the prompt. And I kept catching myself getting caught in the same old cycles. And I made changes and made drastic changes, including like I went on a run with sobriety and getting alcohol out of my life. And it
mm,
was a massive help, massive help. But nonetheless, a few months later, I catch myself still feeling the same way, still having the same down thoughts or the same down days that I thought was associated with my drinking. And it turns out that, I went through these natural lows and this cycle of, you know, just a cycle, man. And so that's what prompted me to give you a call. Like there's got to be a way to break out of this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so what I got there too was it wasn't outside of you. You thought maybe it was like you mentioned the alcohol or something that was outside of you. And as you changed and you
Right.
were making these habits and stuff, it wasn't. You were realizing it was you. You were tired of that. You're tired of the
Yeah.
habits and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, we'll get to that, I'm sure, later in the podcast. But yeah, that was the most important breakthrough I had, was realizing, or having you help me realize, that the power of change and what I was looking to get from external sources or from outside of myself was always within me.
Ooh,
I just had to I just had to dig it out, or uncover it, so to speak, like pushing the sand over something that's buried at the beach and finding it. That's what happened eventually. Yeah.
ooh, man, we could end the podcast there. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's awesome. Okay, so that's what you wanted to do. You wanted to uncover yourself. You knew that it was there. You knew that there was things that you had done, but it still wasn't the thing that you wanted it to do. So what were you skeptical of before investing, if anything? Because we had just met. You know me through Esther. You know about this work. You're familiar with it. Was there any skepticism, trepidation, hesitation, or anything like that?
Well, for me, I wasn't skeptical at all beginning, because, like I said, I was at the point where it's like, what am I afraid of? Like, why am I not going to try this thing that could massively improve my life? Like, what's the deal? So there was zero skepticism, and all, what do I have to lose?
Hmm.
Like, is it okay? Are you okay just staying the same and doing all, going through the same cycles of lows, depressions, and not trying to actually work on yourself? What's worse, taking this chance or just staying the same? Which, if you don't like who you are, or don't like a certain aspect of yourself, why not? Why the hell
Mm.
not? So that was the jump off the cliff, so to speak, because it's like, what do you have to lose, man? And nothing to lose and everything to gain, I guess, was the catalyst.
So in a way, this is how I kind of looked at myself in fitness, and then definitely now going into this mindset stuff. It's I wouldn't say it's the only it's the way to it's the thing to do once everything else doesn't work, but it's one of those options that when everything else doesn't work, this is the thing to go into. And even though it might seem a little bit strange because we're working with the unconscious mind and so many times people don't work with the unconscious mind, why not go into it? Just see what happens, and
Right.
you can always adjust and shift out. You can always change.
Yes. Yeah. So that was the thing. I'd heard about NLP being, for lack of a better term, a way of ripping out the old hardwiring, the old circuitry, the old stuff that was starting to get ingrained and wired through you from the time you were a kid to the time you become, an adult age. You have so much stuff that's been downloaded into you as your parents or your family members, their thoughts and their opinions on what you should do or how life should be. And so that's what was exciting for me, is, going back, opening up that circuit board, so to speak, and seeing what the hell was put in, because we go through life and we're just we're sponges, man. We're sponges, just soaking up all this information from our childhood. And I think everybody owes it to themselves to, after you achieve adulthood, to take back an objective look and say, okay, was all of this stuff I soaked up, is this really serving me? So that's what NLP was always, that was my understanding of it. And that's what I was excited about, this beginning this journey. So that's why I had no skepticism, because I'd heard enough to know, okay, this is what it's supposed to be able to do. So let me open up this closet, uh, and start getting to work. So yeah.
That's awesome. So what does tend to scare others is investment price point, right? Because not going to lie to the person that's listening, there is an investment that comes in it. So was the investment price something that ever scared you, I guess, or caused you to say, I don't know if this is for me, because it's meant to help cause you to stretch.
Right. No, no, for me, I have real estate career, real estate background. I know that anytime you're looking to hire a coach, I mean, good coaching, costs a little bit. And it's like, okay, are you really willing to invest in yourself, both figuratively and literally? And if you're not, then man, that's just a shame. Like, how much money do people waste on Starbucks and BS you don't need, and Amazon packages that get dropped off to your doorstep? Like, you waste money on so much and you won't invest that in yourself.
Hmm.
Come on, man. Like, it's that. So no, that was a never sticking point for me. And for anybody listening, I would encourage you to look around at all the stuff that you buy and all the things that you really don't need that seem great at the time. Why wouldn't you invest that money in yourself? And I'll give you another eye-opening stat, that Conor McGregor saw that LeBron James spends like over $1 million a year just on his recovery, his supplementation, like like all the crazy stuff that he does to take care of his body. And Conor McGregor, he realized, he's like, man, I do nothing. I spend $0 on myself, and it changed everything for him. And we obviously know what happened with Conor McGregor after he made that shift. You know, championships in two different weight divisions, because he realized that holy crap, this guy that's doing it at a high level is investing over $1 million just in his body and his mind and performance. Like, man, so no, make the investment.
100% good. I love it. Great example too, because in order to perform at a high level, you've got to perform at a high level, and that takes performing at a high level. That means being able to make those awe-inspiring catches and shots and plays on a daily basis, right? Like, oh man, LeBron's great because LeBron has done greatness over and over and over. He just didn't do it one time. He's done it over and over and over. Same thing with McGregor, right? Things that people have never ever done before. Okay, so you said this is something that I'm going to do. This is something that I'm going to invest in. And then now we can get into the fun part. This is what I love, y'all, is what happened during the coaching, because there's so many things that can happen and not happen before, and happen and not happen after, or things that we work towards before, things that we work towards after. But what happens during the coaching, whether it's not because of me, whether it's because of Speedy or the combination of our logic, energies, and thought processes, big things happen. So I remember some magical stuff happening within the first couple of weeks of coaching. Could you dive into that, letting us know what was your first couple of quick wins and then your first big breakthrough too?
Yeah. So first couple of wins were just I had a couple of houses go under contract just that fell out the sky, literally. Um, so those were some small wins that I caught. I mean, that kind of stuff happens in real estate from time to time, but the manner in which it happened and the quantity was unusual. I think what I had like 3 deals pop off in the first few weeks that ultimately made me a good bit of money. And I think it was just being open to those opportunities. And
And if you don't mind if I interject real quick, y'all,
yeah.
those that for those that I work with that have their own business and have the ability to determine their own income, everyone has been able to earn that which was spent in the investment within the first couple of weeks. He didn't mention the number. I'm not going to mention the number either, but Speedy accumulated quite a bit within those first couple of weeks and was able to make that investment back, right? Even if
Yes.
those funds went to other places, that investment was able to come back just like that. So please
Yes.
continue.
Yeah. And I would say to your audience that even doesn't have the type of job where, you can, like a sales job where you have uncapped earning potential. The same thing might come to you, and opportunities that you hear about or might come your way that normally you would say no to. But now you need to be like, hold on, this might be coming into my life for a reason. It might be outside of my comfort zone, but maybe this is an opportunity to do something else. So
Yes.
anyway, I would just encourage everybody to be open to that. If you are working a job that has a fixed income, like I did for many years, um, I watched The Secret, believe it or not, and opened me up to the sales opportunity, which got me into real estate. And I've been self-employed in sales for over 10 years now, only because an opportunity presented itself I otherwise would have said no to, but went for it anyway. So
Mm.
that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say about, the people that might be on a fixed income and thinking like, oh, well, my boss isn't just going to give me extra money. No, maybe not. But you might, if you're open to it, you might see other opportunities to do stuff. So
Mm.
anyway, that and the first big victory I had, the first big aha moment was I remember sharing with you that we we needed a dishwasher in our house, and as good as money was, it was like trying to find the right time to have, look, I can wash dishes in the sink, right? When do we have $700-800 to just throw into a dishwasher? So anyway, my wife and I got into a disagreement about it, and I went to the old Speedy. Um, like we talked about before, Eric, like nobody's going to make me feel as bad as I can make myself feel. So I'm not going to let you talk bad about me. I'll talk bad about myself. So my wife and I got into it, and I went to my old speech like, look, I get it. I know I'm falling short of my obligations as a man and as a provider, and I'm a loser, and I'm this and that. And normally I would just crap all over myself to save somebody else the time because I got it. Like, you don't have to do that.
Right.
Watch this. so so I left. I went to the gym, and I hit you on Boxer, and I was like, panicking and talking about this meltdown that I had. But something interesting happened when I was at the gym, like 20, 30 minutes later. Usually when I said that about myself or saved my wife the time and I would just start talking bad about myself, um, shortly after I was at the gym, I was like, man, I said all those words. I said all those words I would normally say, but I don't feel it. I don't
Mm.
feel like it because I'm not a loser. Yeah, things aren't great right now, but I have this and this under contract, and it's going to be. This is a season that I'm in and not a permanent place. And
Mm.
long story short, the stuff I used to say about myself that was true at the time, I said the same words, but I didn't feel the same way anymore.
Mm.
It wasn't the words I said were no longer true
Mm.
and no longer resonated with me. And that was my first big, I would call breakthrough that we had was me realizing all the stuff I used to say about myself. I didn't believe it anymore because I knew better.
And what helped you realize that? What helped you realize that it was not true for you anymore?
Um, because of all the positive changes I was making in my life, because of me getting rid of the alcohol at the time and deciding to put this investment in with you and coaching and bettering myself, and the houses that went under contract as a result of me just staying open to these opportunities and just all the changes I was making and had made in my life. Because far too often we look at our current set of circumstances as that defines us. Well,
Mhm.
in reality, I looked back and like, hey man, you're compared to 6 months ago, you're doing way better. And you're caught up in how you feel right now instead of looking back as your measuring stick, not where you are, where you were. And if you look back and you were greater back then look, that's an opportunity for you to quickly pivot and get out of the slump you might be in, right? But I was not in that slump. I was actually doing way better than I was 6 months, a year, 2 years back, just in terms of everything. So I had to take, go back and take inventory and realize that, hey, look, man, things are actually might not be that fantastic. I mean, not being able to afford a dishwasher, that's not great. But from where you were, from the addiction you had with alcohol and procrastination and not doing what you everything you were supposed to do work wise, you're doing all that stuff now, and you have this money coming in, you have these things under contract, and yeah, it was just like I've made so many steps in the right direction, and I got caught up in my feelings at that moment
Mm.
and not realizing that even though the moment was not fantastic comparatively to where I was, it was far far better. And so, there was just a lot of power in that moment when I realized, okay, well, the positive changes I've made in my life made those statements that used to be true about myself no longer valid.
Mm.
And that was really, just a very powerful moment for me.
And see, that's an identity thing too, right? That's not just a surface level, that's not just a behavior, that's not just a value. That is a core who I am and who I've said myself to be and who I believe myself to be is not the person that I believe myself to be anymore. You were
Right.
you were just running those programs and those scripts that you had set up for yourself. So that's huge. Like, and it's almost like taking a picture of the Grand Canyon. You send somebody the picture, and it's like this doesn't do it any justice. And like I feel it, and I know the audience member feels it, but to really understand the shift that was taking place at the beginning and how it affected so much of life. So we've talked about how it affected monetarily, right? You were able to bring in more. Did it affect any other areas? Like what else, where else did you feel that positive impact? So it was your pocketbook, you feel it in yourself. How else did those branches spread out for people?
Oh yeah, yeah, all of my relationships. I have married with three kids. One of my daughters moved out, but still two living with us. My relationships improved there because I remember I was telling you a few weeks ago. In the past, I like to wake up early. I like to get my morning rolling early. I like to be up at 5:30, get out the door. Like I have my routine in the morning. And if I don't go to sleep at a decent hour, I can still do all that stuff, but I'm really tired. It's just easier for me to go to sleep early. Well, uh, I had this moment where a few weeks ago, I was sitting watching a movie with the family, and it was kind of running over. It's going to put us in bed at like 10:30, 11 o'clock. It was a school night, work night for me. But I caught myself in the past. I used to be like kind of like a B word about, come on, let's go. Like, we got to get the movie rolling. I want to get to bed on time. I used to be a little bit too, too aggressive with it. And it would cause my wife to react negatively and, you know, call me out on my behavior. And then sometimes I would even like ruin movie night. Like it ends in like a giant fight. And now, even if you hit, even if you take the movie off pause, there was still like this big uneventful ruckus of a disagreement and argument that took place and changed the whole vibe of like maybe we were watching a funny movie and now nobody's laughing
Yeah.
as we force ourselves through the rest of this movie. Well, this time, what was different is I caught myself. I was like,
Mm.
okay, I felt it coming up, and I thought, remember I told you, I thought like, okay, look, Speedy, we're all on this very mortal journey, and there's going to come an end to this point. And I was telling this to myself. I said, I highly doubt, hopefully years down the road, when I'm at the hospital or on my deathbed and and my time is done, I'm not going to look back and think, man, I wish I would went to sleep earlier. I'm going to look back and think, man, those movie nights with my family were amazing.
Oh.
And before this coaching, I don't think I would have had the presence of mind to stop myself and think down the road looking backwards. It's like, hey man, really like getting in bed early is that's the reason we're gonna blow up the whole night? Or, like I said, are you gonna look back and think like, man, those nights were some of the best nights of my life. So
Right.
instead of destroying this moment, why don't you just, maybe sleep in 30 minutes later than you normally do tomorrow morning and catch up there, or just make yourself get up at 5 and work through the little bit of tiredness that you might have versus, you know, being I don't know if we're allowed to curse on here, but being an a-hole about
You can curse.
being an asshole about, getting to bed at a certain time. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's another one of many impactful moments that I've had. Being able to stop yourself and think about what you're doing, analyze what's going to happen if you do it. That's things I never used to do before. I would just
Mm.
react. I would just do it. I would just, you know, kind of fly, shooting from the hip instead of thinking, okay, what happens when I take this gun out and shoot?
Yes.
So yeah, having that's been huge.
Yes. That space in between, right? Like that was a conversation I had recently as well, is the the space that through this coaching, what happens is you clear certain events and emotions in the past, right, that are holding you back. And what that allows is a space instead of the emotion. So maybe for anger, where one would get angry and one would snap, normally what happens now is since you've cleared it, there's that space and you can determine what it is that you want to do moving forward. And it sounds like you were able to take advantage of that. You were able to utilize it very quickly, right? So is it just with your family that you've been able to do that, or has it poured into other areas of life too?
Yeah, it's poured into every area of
Mm,
life, and yeah, being able to stop, think, and run through things before you just react. So yeah, it's been in
mhm.
every area of my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, so far it's huge, right? Like we've had career hit, we've had this space that's there. So let me ask you this: have there been stressful? Well, I know that, but I guess for the audience, have there
Right.
been stressful moments throughout our coaching and throughout this time period where, again, you may have reacted, right, and not necessarily been proud of the actions or the results from that reaction? Have there been moments where you've been able to kind of sit back, respond, and then not repeat past hiccups?
Yes, yes, for sure. Um, Especially stuff with work. I deal in a very frustrating business where things can go wrong, financing, title companies. So yeah, being able to have that reflection of thinking things through before you act. Yeah,
Mm,
it's been everywhere. It's been everywhere in my life. And yeah, it could be very well pointed back to all the things in my past that have frustrated me that through the coaching I was able to release, or think about how you're going to behave, or learn from past mistakes, things that didn't go right, and apply that to everything,
mhm,
including the present moment.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
So good. That's so good. Um, okay. So yeah, I want to keep hitting on those learnings. So we've gotten work, we've gotten family, we've gotten hit in relationships, right? One thing that you mentioned was your morning routine, and that's been a part of your weight loss journey. So you were on a weight loss journey, body. I like to say a recomposition journey because you're recomposing what and how your body is made of. So you were able to lose quite a bit of weight before the coaching, and you joined a program called 75 Hard, right? The mental toughness program, Indy Frisella. You keep that thing going, and you were using that to help improve yourself, right? I
Yes.
remember you mentioned with that you were doing a lot of walking, but there wasn't so much training as well. And during this coaching, you were able to get back into resistance training and training. So if you could tell us about your health journey and then how this helped out in your health journey as well.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I tried 75 hard at least 30 or 40 times. Where I would always fail is at the problem. I've already mentioned the alcohol addiction that crept up on me. Um, I would always fail because of that. And when I finally eliminated that from my life, November 16th of last year,
Mm,
um, I was like, okay, now the one thing that's always tripped me up, I can make another run at this, and I did. And I think you and I connected shortly after that, or like right after I finished it, which was another kind of convenient alignment because I felt like maybe I was, when they say when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. So after I completed 75 hard, I kind of had this, lost 60 pounds, did great, did it to the letter of the law. And man, I had a moment where I just, on the last day, on day 75, like I cried like a baby. But then after that, I was kind of like, okay, well, what's next?
Mhm.
Like, I had that big victory, and then you kind of go, everybody kind of naturally does, right? It's like you got that big victory, that big win, and there's kind of the low after that. Like, okay, well, what now? I'm still having the same cycle of thoughts and things that are holding me back. And that's when this coaching presented itself. And I just felt like it was the next natural thing for me to kind of put myself through. And so, yeah, it's funny looking back at it now because, after I did 75 hard, I had the big lull, like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I guess the next natural thing that presented itself was like, okay, well, you worked on your physical and that's great, but now let's work on you. Let's, because you did it. Okay. But you still feel the same. You still wake up and you feel the same the next morning. So that's great that you achieved that, but that wasn't it. That's not what you were looking for.
Mhm.
What are you really looking for?
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm kind of getting the chills saying it out loud because, what I was really looking for was myself.
Mm.
Yeah. And I through 75 hard, I gained a lot of what it's advertised as. The self-esteem, the confidence, because you really do gain that stuff throughout that program because you're accountable to yourself. There's nobody behind you making sure you don't eat that chicken nugget. It's all you versus you. And I did it. But I had the self-esteem, the confidence and all that, but I still didn't find myself in it. Not like I did with this coaching
Right.
because I still had all the same stuff, all the same thoughts, and all the same past traumas anchoring me back to those feelings. And this coaching was just a way to kind of cut all that loose too, which I'm excited to talk about how that actually worked when we did the timeline stuff and releasing all the old stuff that was back there too, because that was majorly impactful.
Yes. So what we've for the listener, we're only hitting right now within the first 4 weeks, right? Like 4 or 5 weeks of things that are happening, realizations. The way that I like to describe it is dense energy within being broken apart, right? Certain ways of thinking are starting to be shaken loose a little bit. And this happened these results happened very, very quickly. So what Speedy just mentioned is one of the major processes that we use is called timeline therapy. Without getting into the details of that, what we do is we explore the unconscious mind and we explore things that the unconscious mind has kept to protect the individual from whatever the individual feels like they need to be protected against, right? Because it's context dependent, it's individual dependent. And each person learns different things as we clear different things. What we clear is we clear anger, we clear sadness, we clear guilt, we clear fear, we clear oh my gosh, we clear hurt, guilt, fear, anger, sadness. And then we explore with the individual what else needs to be cleared, if there are any particular events, if there's any distinguishing moments in the past, right, that may be there. So if you'd like, tell us about that experience, some of the learnings, not the whole process, right, as far as
Right. Yeah.
therapy goes, but
Yeah.
what were your key takeaways? What are the things that you want to mention regarding that?
Yeah. So my key takeaway was, and I put this on the video that I dropped a video for you on Facebook, giving you a shout out. So it's not like it's not like getting rid of things. Okay. You're not totally eliminating or wiping your memory. You're just, so for me, it was like the best way I could describe it the following day when I made the video was I had this barn, this old spooky barn full of you know, all those bad things that people remember or overanalyze or continue to think about. I had this big spooky barn filled with cobwebs and nasty spiders, and I had animals that I would call my, my traumas, just tied up in there, stuck. And what it did was not eliminate those or get rid of them. What it did for me was I went in there, opened up the doors, untied them, and if they want to leave, if they leave, that's fine. But if they didn't, that's fine too. They were dealt with, as far as I'm concerned. They were free to do whatever they wanted.
Mm.
So that was the release. It's not like I didn't like shoo them out the barn or get rid of them. I just released them. So yeah, that's what was majorly impactful for me during that time. I know I'm not going to talk about too much of it, give it away, but I was able to release those things, and through releasing them, therefore they had no more power. It was not something I had to be responsible for anymore, because you keep those things, you harbor those things. You got to go in there and feed them, right? You got to go make sure they're okay. You got to keep them alive, because that's what's protecting you, like you just said. But when you realize, okay, these things aren't serving me anymore, and I don't want to take care of these things anymore, so I'm just going to let them go.
Mm.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
Mm. Mm. So I recently spoke with someone, and I mentioned to them the timeline therapy of prospect, and they mentioned to me that they want to get rid of emotional events. They use trauma, and I'm not one to say that we get rid of trauma. There are processes for that, but I'm not, the practitioner that is guaranteeing that, right? As far as like legal protection and shit.
Right.
There are events though that are significant emotional events for people. And this prospect said, I want to get rid of that, but now's not the time. I don't think it's going to affect the rest of my life. I don't think it's going to affect my relationships. I don't think it's going to affect my career. I want to work on something else. I don't think that stuff's holding me back.
Mm.
What would be your response to something like now? I'm not necessarily saying trauma, I'm saying significant emotional events, these emotions that experience. What would you say? Would you say yeah, okay, good.
I'm already laughing just because you've coached me so much. To me, that seems like exactly what that's the one thing you don't want to do. Like, I don't want to, let's just leave that alone. That's probably the one thing you need to get rid of, because there's something that you don't want to let go about that. And that's concerning, at least for me. Look, I'm not an NLP certified coach, and I don't claim to be, but just as you were saying that, I started smiling and laughing to myself, because the one thing you don't want to deal with is exactly what you need to deal with.
Damn.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's especially if you're trying to talk yourself out. Oh, we don't have to worry about that. Like, no, there's something there. Otherwise, why not just do it? Then okay, if it's not a big deal, then let's do it. Like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. Okay, then there's the question in there too. Okay, well, why don't you want to get rid of this right now? Why do you think this is? Why do you think this is still serving you somehow, or something that's not as important? When clearly it is, because you don't want to get rid of it. There's something you don't want to get rid of there that obviously needs to go.
Mm.
That's just my opinion.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree. So, okay, there's stuff in there. In your barn, you've let the light in. The animals are there. It's not that you're not feeding them the same way anymore. You've released them. They're not bound. They're not tied. If they want to stick around, that's cool. Now you can learn from them, right? Like, this is why they're here, is for you to learn, for them to teach, and then for you to receive. With that, this is something curious. Without going into detail, were there events that you did not realize you needed to clear in order to clear and move forward?
Yes, dude. Something innocuous, as ridiculous as, like, I remember I was my fourth birthday party, and nobody showed up except me and my mom. And like, it's before we started coaching. It's like I wouldn't even thought that far back to remember that.
Mm.
And yeah, so something as silly but obviously still impactful as that was something I had to go back and deal with. And since then, I haven't even thought about it until you just brought it up. Um,
Mm,
and it's not to say like it was a thing I thought about all the time, but it was something back there that I didn't realize until I really had to, really think about it. And like I said, untying that was majorly impactful because whatever emotion, I forget what emotion that I had attached to that, that's caused major improvements and just about everything in that chain of events.
mm, mm. So you don't know what you don't know. That's one of my favorite phrases, right? And this helps to uncover those things that you didn't know that you didn't know.
Right.
So we got the big clearing in. We learned a lot of different things. Was it was it like, this is such a terrible example. Was it like I was holding a gun to your head? Was it like you ran a marathon? Was it so physically exhausting, terrifying, and stressful that you felt like, oh my God, I never want to go through this again? What was that experience for you like?
Oh yeah. So the main experience was no gun. It was at times I felt. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah,
It
100%.
was hard work. It was hard work because to get rid of these things or to take their power away, you have to really go back and deal with them. And so that to me was a lot of the times during the coaching where I would disconnect from you or pull away. It was really just very uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to do this work. I mean, to really do it, not to say like, oh yeah, kind of got rid of that. I mean, to really dig down and dig in yourself and do the work was emotionally difficult. And so that was the only, the tough part for me was not exhaustion, but just really, you know, freeing up those emotions and digging in and doing that work was, yeah, just emotionally difficult. But looking back, it's the best thing I could have done because those things that held me back, those things that I gave power to, now aren't even really a thought in my mind. And I think you were even asking me about a particular event with my brother. You were like, is this clear? And I was like, oh yeah. Like if you would have told me 2 or 3 months ago, like, hey, look, I'm gonna help you not tie so much emotional uh, anchors to this, I would not have believed you. I would have been like, nope, this is pretty much always going to be a thing for me, bro. But I appreciate it. And it's just not. And it's just from doing the work. Very yeah, difficult, hard, but so worth it. And for anybody listening, I would say you're worth it as well.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So it's uncomfortable. It's
Yes.
challenging. You have to be able to show up. You have to do it. Um, that was it. You don't lift anything, right? You just watch videos. I ask you to do
Yeah.
some homework, write it out. But the main
Yeah.
thing is showing up. It's showing up.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yeah.
so,
So
go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, no physical exertion, no nothing. There is a very low bar of requirement, and that's really just you showing up, being accountable, and doing the work. And a huge shout out to you as well. There was times when I wouldn't quite get to you on time, or oh man, I'm busy and I'm doing this, and you'd be like, yeah, man, look, I understand all that, but um, you're not paying me to let you slide here. Like we're doing this work, and you know, I'm just holding you accountable to what you said you wanted to do. You told me you wanted to do this. So really I'm here for you, but I'm also here as a reminder to not let you slip because it seems like slipping or putting stuff aside or procrastinating is what led you into this coaching and led you to me. And, respectfully, I can't let you do that because it's not why I'm here, but in the most positive and reinforcing way possible.
Awesome. Thank
So
you.
so yeah, that was huge.
Awesome. Awesome. So we've now are about 2/4, or excuse me, 2/3 through the coaching journey. and you've cleared the things that you need to clear. We've gotten through a majority of the bulk here going on, right? Um, is there anything that comes to mind to mention before I ask the next question and move on to the next piece?
No, no, the only thing I thought of that, that I forgot to mention at the beginning, was I noticed when I first got big into, the meditation and just the overall part of when we first started coaching. I remember I told you one day, I was like, dude, lately, I do have religious beliefs and I believe there's a higher power. But I've never been the one to sit there and like say grace or be thankful for every meal.
Yes, I remember.
But I started doing that, just and not out of like a conscious choice I felt like I made. I just felt as though I should be more grateful for a lot of stuff that I have. Um, so that unlocked a big part of it for me too, was you know, being more grateful for what I have, and just the simple meal that you're eating. And I remember even laughing to you at one of our Zoom meetings, like, because literally I'm under a shelter in a climate controlled, environment, where I just got out of this very comfortable bed and took a hot shower. And there's 85 million people that don't have access to clean water. And I'm here complaining about all the stuff that I feel like I don't have.
Mhm.
So anyway, the coaching unlocked that for me too, is kind of being more mindful of what you do have, and taking stock in that instead of being worried about what you don't have. Now,
Mm.
look, we're all here because we want to do better and be better and achieve and have more. But if you're not happy with what you have, then I don't know, just that's a bad spot to be.
How can you get
But
more if
yeah,
you're not happy with what you have?
correct. Yeah, and that's something Steve Harvey says that I love. He's like, why, if you believe in God, like, why would God give you more stuff to then not be grateful for? you know. So anyway,
Overwhelm is a choice, man. Stress is a
yeah,
choice, being
yeah,
ungrateful is a choice. Okay, so a couple of things. Okay, we're two-thirds of the way through. The gratitude, you're becoming more grateful, you're connecting more, family relationships are getting better, career and monetary is starting to blast off here. And we get the clearing, but you, like you mentioned, there was some pulling back, right? There were moments where scheduling was tougher, and this happens with everybody. I've noticed is that since I allow the student to choose whenever they're gonna pick their time, right? It's not like we say this time next week, this time next week. I say go on the calendar, figure out what works best for you. Sometimes it's easy for life to get in the way, for um, this to not be the priority, right? Especially whenever we get into this deeper stuff, because I take the mirror and I hold it to you, right? So there are moments where, and I'm not too an aggressive of a person, but I like to put the pressure on when I have to. I had to put the pressure on, right? And there were moments where we were two rams and we butted heads in different places. So I would love if you could give your, not only your experience of how you felt saying that, but also, like you mentioned with me, because we've talked about that overbearing, like, you better fucking listen to me type of coaching, and
right.
how that's not effective, right? So what was your perspective and your experience with through those hard moments and those moments where you had to be called up, you had to show out?
Yeah, yeah. So, really, what I learned through those moments was really, it was eye opening for me, because a lot of the frustration that you had at some points, or not frustration, but some of the misunderstanding you had at some of those points, was lack of information on my side.
Mm,
So I'd be like, "Hey, man, we need to push to this because I'm having dinner, or I can't get this homework back to you because we're having a movie night with the family." But I failed to tell you why that was so important to me and what the big deal about it was. And once you understood that, you were fine. So really, a lot of the stuff that we had, that you kind of helped push me back with, was what I'd realized, the failure to communicate on my end, or not give you all the information you needed to properly react. So that was something that I learned that was huge, because that's helped me improve my communication with everybody in my life, because I've realized that, okay, well, maybe I'm giving everyone 75% of the information they need to make a decision on how to respond to what I just said. So that was the main part of it. The other part was, this work is uncomfortable. It is difficult, not in a physical sense, but if you really want to do this, and if you really want to get, clear up this stuff and really find your best self, it's gonna take being uncomfortable. And a big part of that for me was just, you kind of steadily being there, reminded me like, hey man, you reached out to me. I didn't come find you. I didn't call it like cold call you out the phone book and say, hey, do you want to change your life? You came to me and said, I want to change my life. And I'm just here, like you said, to hold that mirror in front of you and remind you of what your goal here is and what I'm trying to help you do. I don't need I don't need you. I don't, not in the sense of like that, but like I'm not trying to change, I'm not going to chase you down to change your life, but I am going to hold this mirror in front of you and remind you of why you did this. So that was huge. That was huge. So both in terms of communication with me and you, with me failing to communicate everything, and you just being there as a constant and steady reminder of what my goal was and what I came to you for. And yes, it's going to be difficult and uncertain, but that's where all the growth is, right? So yeah, I had to kind of drag myself with your help through it to get to the end, but um, yeah, it's just huge, man. It's huge, all of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So after the pullbacks and those lessons that were learned, we got together. There was a period of time where you were figuring stuff out, you were learning. I remember maybe it was the way that I formed it in my head, but I want to say that you were at one point looking to see how I would respond, if I was going to ghost back or just say this is going to be done or however it was going to be. But we got back together. We met up, and then there was this huge realization that happened, and we talked about it was either right before or right after that first meeting back, and
Yes.
it became like the new Speedy. So tell us about that, please.
Yeah. So what happened is during that time we had hit a point in our coaching where we're getting towards the end, and I went on a business trip to go see Tony Robbins in Dallas.
Yes. Oh, this is such
And
a good story, y'all. Pay attention. It's such
yeah,
a good story.
yeah. So I was so excited for it, so ramped up, and by the time the third day of the event, this is when Tony Robbins was coming on. And I'd hyped him up in my head, right? I mean, I watched I'm Not Your Guru, which is a fabulous thing you should watch on Netflix if you haven't. And I've listened to his audio tapes and all of his old stuff, The Power of Greatness and the old videos. And so man, I was just so excited to see him in person. And when it finally came around, he comes out on stage, Tony Robbins, the smoke machines and the fog lights, and it was great to see him come out on stage and clapping it up with everybody and doing
Yeah.
the whole like doing this whole ramp up thing. And after about 45 minutes to an hour of watching him on stage, um, it's not to say he's unimpressive. Obviously, he's the man. I mean, he's who he is for a reason, and there's no doubt about that or taking any of that away from him. But I've done so much work on myself over the years and read the books and did the work and not did the work. Not, I really wouldn't say I did any sort of work until you and I started coaching, because you can read all the books you want, but until you start applying the stuff into action, it's not work.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's up on stage, and after about 45 minutes to an hour in, he hasn't said anything that I don't know already. Not one thing. And it's not to say his delivery isn't sweet. I mean, his delivery's the best. The way, his impactful, his pacing, it's all great. But once you realize, okay, he's pacing for this reason, as he's bringing it up here, and you understand the uptones and the influxes of his voice and why he's delivering, like I had an understanding of why he was even presenting the way he was. So if I know why this dude, I know everything he's saying for the most part. I know why he's delivering it a certain way, and I have a deep understanding of all this. I'm good. Like I got it. I left. I walked out. I'm the only one that was walking out of that room. Everybody else is still going in and out from the bathroom.
Mm.
And I left the event. He had about 2 or 3 hours left on stage. And I want to be very clear. I didn't leave because I was disappointed.
Mhm.
I left because I knew it was time to go act. I was like, okay, it's time for me to go get to work because I saw him 45 minutes to an hour, and again, it's just he was saying stuff that I already knew. I just needed to go put into action. And then after I left, I was kind of bummed out with me and you because I was like, man, if I just walked out on Tony Robbins, what the, what the hell is Eric going to teach me? And so that's I kind of disconnected from you. But then I realized that that was just my ego talking, and that the work that you and I are doing, not motivational pep talk stuff. You and I were doing totally separate jobs, totally separate work here. And when I had tried to kind of disconnect from you or pull away, and after a while, like after a week or two, I was like, man, then I was not afraid to reach out, but hesitant to reach out because like, man, he's probably mad, he's probably upset with me, and he's probably disappointed. And that's the stuff I would do in the past. That's the stuff I would try to talk myself out of doing, or not following up with this person, or not reaching out to this person because I think they're mad or upset or something with me. And I'd done that in the past. I've done that with like other brokerages I worked for. If I was in a sales slump, I'd be like, "Oh man, Garrett, my old partner." I'd be like, "Man, he's probably upset with me because I'm not really closing on much." And the next time I talk to Garrett, he'd be like, "Hey, what's up, man? How you been?" "Oh, great." And like all this big story I made up in my head, this big scary monster, was actually
Mhm.
nothing at all but my own thoughts.
Mm.
And when you finally kind of put the press on me, like, "Hey, man, look, let's do this," and I just finally came out with it and told you, like, "Hey, man, I don't know. I feel like I'm done here. Like I don't know. I'm kind of confused, so to speak, or not really. I don't know if I'm losing it or what." And that's when you sent me that message, like, "Hey, man, look, you have to finish this. We said we were going to do this. You signed up for this coaching saying you were going to see this through. And look, you do what you want. Just know I'm here for you because I was here to help you change your life. And we're not done. The work's not done. We only have 2 or 3 more calls left, man. We're almost there. Like, what are you doing?" And then in that moment, I realized all the other things that I talked myself out of finishing, or talked myself up out of doing, or like, "Oh yeah, I got the gist of it." And then, no, you don't, because your life's not incredible. You're not yet another thing you're not really following through with or seeing through because you're uncomfortable and you're scared.
Mhm.
And as soon as I mean, right after we'd had that come to Jesus meeting, so to speak, between you and I, um, it to me, it feels like I had unlocked the last level of what we were trying to do. As
Mm.
soon as as soon as we as soon as I realized, holy crap, I'm doing the same thing that I've done over and over, which is not really see things through to completion. And I'm saying that as a relatively successful real estate broker,
Mhm.
and having done pretty okay in terms of production. And so I'm what most people would consider a relatively successful guy. And there's so many areas and so many things in my life that I didn't see through, and you just reminded me, like, "Hey man, this pattern you know that you're going through right now with trying to disconnect from me and trying to not finish this is kind of why you came to me, because you wanted things to be different. You wanted to be the type of man that follows through and sees things through and takes responsibility for his shit. Like, this is what you came here for."
Mhm.
And as soon as you would help me have that realization, man, my meditation the next day, I got what I call like a kick in the chest from like the universe or from God. It's the most profound experience I've ever had in my life.
Mm.
And I don't think I would have had that experience had I punked out and not finished this and not seen everything through, because I think that unlocked everything. And the whole reason I came to you is because I wanted things to be different. I wanted change. I wanted to be the type of man that, you know, just accountable and responsible and follow through on what you say you're going to do because you said you would. And yeah, and then those past 2 or 3 weeks since then, everything's changed. Everything, how I view the world, how I view myself. When, like I said, that meditation practice that I had that morning, I cried, dude. That's the first time I cried during meditation ever, or even felt compelled to even have an emotional thought. Like, yeah, and it's 100% because as soon as I made that decision, as soon as you helped me come to that decision that I was going to see this thing through and finish it, I felt like that was the last. I felt like that was the breakthrough of many breakthroughs. So yeah, that was huge.
So you mentioned it was, first off, amazing, because I think you're 100% right. You got the bulk of everything right, and then it came to that point of kind of like Tony Robbins, right? Full circle. I know what he's saying, so why would I have to continue? And then, hey, let's finish what we got to finish. And then that pretty much broke the glass ceiling in order for you to become this whole new person. So first, so the audience can have a semblance, an idea, because there's no way they can know, right? There's no way the person that's listening to this can know this experience without experiencing it themselves. And it's still going to be different than your experience because it's your experience. So if there's any light that you could shed on everything's completely changed, you're this new person, this new identity, if there's any light that you can shed and spread with that, what would it be in order to help describe that a little bit more?
Yeah, so and I want to be very clear on something. Me walking out on Tony Robbins was not the same as me trying to disconnect from you, because you and I were doing real work. Tony Robbins was up on stage, just talking about content that I already knew. And I've heard the phrase that Andy Frisella uses a lot. It's called a success zombie, right? Where you go to all the seminars, you read all the books, and then you're back at the same seminars the next year, learning absolutely nothing new, when really you just came back there because you failed to take action on what you learned to change your life. And what one thing Gary Vee says that I like, he's like, look, I don't want you to consume my content for forever. I want you to learn what you got to learn from me and take off. And he said, I don't want your subscriptions. I don't want your likes. I don't need that. I'm good. Right. I want you to take what you got from me and go and run. So that's when I walked out of the Tony Robbins room. That was not me saying, oh, it's not the same as you and I. That was me saying, okay, got it, Tony. I'm going to take action.
Got it.
And so, yeah. And so the thing with you and me was different because that was the uncomfortableness of working on myself. So I just wanted to clear that up for the audience, and clear that up for me and you as well.
Yeah.
Two totally separate things, even though they seem similar. One is like, okay, I got it. Thank you, Tony. I realize that I've got it. And, I realize that I don't need to be in here every year, that I need to now stop looking to you for answers and realize I have the answer and go.
Huge.
And yeah, so yeah, the uncomfortableness of just me and you finishing was more about the, I guess the old me. The old me still trying to claw me back in. The old me still trying to drag me back down under the water I just swam out of. And once I realized that, that's when everything unlocked. So I don't know if that exactly answered your question, but that's what I quickly realized. And as soon as I realized I was trying to be the crab in my own bucket, so to speak, and pull me back down by saying, hey, look, you're good, you got it. It's like, no, bro, you don't have it. That's why you went and saw the man. And that's why you're paying him to coach you, because you don't got it. So you're trying to do the same stuff. You're punking out.
Right.
And that's over. That's over. We're done with that. So yeah, and that's 100% why everything unlocked for me in the past 2 or 3 weeks of the coaching, because that was the final sticking point. I guess that was the last opportunity for the old Speedy to keep me back.
There it was.
And once I realized that, it was over.
Boom. So what's life like as this new Speedy?
Man, I'm still learning that. I'm still, I'm in the first few weeks after that breakthrough, and that meditation was just unreal. And it's been really great ever since. But it's no longer operating from um, the old self. It's operating from knowing better and knowing that all along I had the power inside of me the whole time. I just needed your help to uncover that and figure that out. So really, like, what I would tell anybody who's listening is you help the people find what's been in them all along,
Mm.
and you help them dig out the weeds and uncover all the bullshit, and pull out all the poison oak and the stuff that's surrounding what you already have to let you shine. So it's, you're the Sherpa through somebody's dark forest of their own BS that's been holding them back. At least that's been my experience. And as soon as I realized that you were kind of sitting beside me the whole time, like, hey, bro, I told you, like, you had it. I told you had it all along. You just I had to help you see that for yourself. And that's been the biggest part of this whole thing is that is knowing that the power, the self-discipline, the control to be the type of person I've set out to be. When we started this, I was him and he was me all along. I just didn't know it. And you had to help me see that, not just through like a shift in perspective, but doing the work to really own the new identity and not just say you have it. So yeah, man, I can't describe to you how huge it's all been and how huge it's gonna be, because this is just the beginning. I'm like a month into this giant breakthrough, and I'm telling you, I keep going back to that meditation where, and I'll just tell the audience real quick.
Mhm.
I just went into a deep meditation, like I always do. I mean, if you look at my Calm app, I have like over 1,000 sessions. Like, so I've been meditating for years on a pretty regular basis. So this time I sat down. It was after my breakthrough with you. I sat down and I went deep. I went deep in, and I started seeing colors, shapes, and started seeing this. Everything started kind of moving on me, like a trippy scene in a movie, like somebody ate mushrooms and everything's swirling and moving. And I thought to myself a couple of times, what is that? I've never seen that before. I've never seen it. What is that? And it wasn't an audible voice that I heard. It was just something in me that said, I'm the universe.
Mm.
I'm you. I'm you. And you are
Mm.
me. I've always been here and I got you. Was kind of like not
Mm.
the exact verbiage, but what I felt from that. And when I felt that, and when I knew that, it's literally something hit me in the chest, like almost physically. I just felt this big pulse of energy, and it was joy. And I started crying, like almost like a baby, until my timer went off. My little app, I used the Calm app, my 10-minute timer. And man, I've been meditating for a long time, and I've never had an experience like that. And I 100% believe that if I'd not had that final breakthrough of me not quitting and following through with this, I don't think I would have achieved that. And, you could call it enlightenment. You can call it whatever phrase that you feel like you have. I don't feel like I'm spiritually enlightened, like the greats, so to speak. But it was definitely a moment of enlightenment and realization that, that you're your own rescue. You're your own everything. And the moment you unlock that and realize that, you're way more powerful than you imagined, that's when everything gets really fun. Or at
Mm.
least it's been fun for me since.
You're right. That is when it gets really fun because there's nothing holding you back anymore. You know that it's a kind of a bittersweet thing. It's all on you, and it's all on you.
Right.
So one of the first things was you mentioned well, one of the first things that happens, right, is we talk to your unconscious mind, we communicate with it, and there was a voice within, and it's a distinct voice, right? And this happens with everyone, but they have their own context. Everyone has their own context as to what that voice was. So when you first started communicating with your unconscious mind, what was your definition of who you were speaking with?
I called it my purest self.
Yes. So when you were communicating with your purest self, did it seem like it was that same voice that you heard during the meditation, or was it a different one as well?
Yeah, yeah, it was the same.
Mm,
So it was me. So it was me. But I can honestly say that it's me, but my connection to God. So, or universal power, like whatever God is for you. Yes, it's me. But it's coming from something else. I feel
yeah.
it's
Something within, with not
it's
about.
right. Yeah, correct. Something within, but the messenger of something being relayed to me.
Yeah.
Um, not an outside audible voice. It's internal. And yeah, I did not start tapping into that really until we started doing the subconscious thoughts. Like that, those thoughts, they're always there, but it's been a lot more guidance, or more the frequencies tapped in better. It's a little bit louder. It's a little bit more clear. So even though that voice might be there for some people right now, I think you can definitely tap. You could tap on that knob a little bit, turn the volume up, and increase the frequency
100%.
through doing this work. So
100%.
1000%.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Oh my God. All right. So we're getting close to the end of this podcast. We've hit on so much. We've covered so much, and it's awesome. I love these podcasts, especially as we finish, the cycle, because it's like, holy shit, you did a lot, like a lot with all the results that you've had. You went from seeking outside of yourself to now having the internal voice communicating with you, and you don't need anything outside of yourself. You have it internally, right? Like this whole new breakthrough. You feel like a new person. I was doing some of my own homework the other day, and they're like, tell us your story. And I was like, well, there's so many different points to tell the story of
Right.
who I was for a particular point of time, like when you start your own business, you become a new person. When you start making a certain amount of money at that business, when you have a certain amount of clientele, like you upgrade all these different times, you level up. So the same with you, right? Like you're leveling up. This is the start of the story, is Speedy in this state. So my next question would be, well, before we move on to who you would recommend this for, are there any other specific results, learnings that come to mind that you would want to share with the audience member, or that we didn't mention before?
There were so many. We
Yeah.
don't have enough time, dude. I mean, all the stuff I would share with you on Vox, all the small things
Yeah.
that you notice. So much, so much. I mean, if you really dig in, you really do this work. There were so many things I experienced that I honestly would have to go back through my notes. It'd be a whole nother podcast. So much, dude. An incredible amount.
Good. Good.
Nothing sticks to mind aside from, you remember when you asked me, we were doing one of our sessions. You're like, how would you like to see yourself? I said I'd like to see myself as like a strong businessman type, and I was just wearing a t-shirt and shorts and like my hey dudes at an Aldi, and my daughter was waiting for me outside the bathroom, and I walked past her and looked down at her, and she was like, "Oh my God!" She's like, "I didn't even." My daughter's 11, by the way. She's like, "I didn't recognize you for a second." I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "I don't know. You just look like a businessman. Like you're a businessman, and you just look down on me like I was a peasant." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And we just walked to go get our little case of LaCroix and walked out. And I'd realized that I told you that how I wanted to view myself and how I wanted to carry myself is with the confidence of a businessman dressed up in a suit and, have like just that aura about you. And my daughter, who I was literally known her for every day of her life ever, I was just walking out of a bathroom and walked past her and she didn't recognize me for a second because of how I was. Look, I wasn't in a suit. It was just because of how I was carrying myself.
Mm.
So just stuff like that. I mean, yeah, it's just so much, so
So
much.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, and that's the other piece too, right? So for the listener, if this is ever something that the coaching is ever something that you want to consider, we spend what the first 15, 20 minutes of every call going through what you notice and what's different, because that noticing leads to more changes in life. And for the listener, you'd be surprised at how many times a client, not necessarily Speedy, but a client might say, nothing has happened this week. And it's like, okay, let's dig in a little bit deeper. And then all of a sudden,
Right. Yeah.
there's some pretty big changes that have happened. So
Yeah.
who would you recommend this for, dude? I mean, who needs to have this work? Who would you say you need to do this now? You need to do this later. Who is this for? Who would you recommend this for?
Oh man. I would honestly, not to be cliche or too broad, I would recommend this for anyone. But to
Yeah.
get more specific, I would recommend this to anyone who. All right, I'll just tell you what would happen with me. I'd read all these great books, right? Listen to Eric Thomas, run, go work out. So, all right, tomorrow, the new Speedy. Tomorrow, the new Speedy, I'm going to get up, I'm going to tackle life, I'm going to make all my calls, I'm going to sell 5 houses this month, I'm all over it. And you wake up, you're tired, and you feel like the same old person. There's a very, very real reason for that. That's because while you're sleeping, what happens? Your subconscious mind erases that chalkboard of all that great stuff you did, because if you're not doing the work, you don't retain any of that stuff. So your mind just blank slates you overnight. That's what was happening with me. And I remember specifically telling you one time, probably like 3 or 4 weeks in, for the first time in my life, I woke up and I didn't feel like the
Yeah.
same old person from the day before.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty constant since then. Like pretty much every day I would wake up and just feel the same, no matter how much positive content, no matter how much Eric Thomas I watched, no matter how many notes I made about all the great things I was going to do the next day. I would wake up and the same old person would be there to meet me.
Yeah.
But there was a point in this coaching where that wasn't true anymore. And that person, the old person, wasn't there. So I'd recommend this to anybody who's looking to make any sort of serious improvements and you feel like your past may be holding you back, what is hardwired in you from your upbringing as to what might be holding you back, or better yet, if you don't know what's holding you back at all, that's even better, because that's who this is for. This is for the person or persons that either A, wake up after all this great stuff that you did the day before and feel like your old self, or if you don't know what's holding you back from getting to that next level in life, this is for you too. And I would argue and say that, like, even if you feel like you are kind of crushing it in life right now, what might happen if you leveled that up a little bit? And
Mm.
so that's why I'm saying this is kind of for anybody.
Yeah.
Because we all, every single one of us, every human being on this planet, including my children, have been raised as little sponges that just soak up and take in whatever information is coming in from their outside world. It is incumbent upon all of us, I feel like. Everyone, as soon as you come into your own as realizing you are a conscious being and you're responsible for your growth and development, I think we all owe it to ourselves to do this work, because we need to figure out what has been instilled in us that is good and legit, like a lot of the hardcore stuff that comes from, your dad over times that we talk, that stuff he instilled in you, that stuff you can look back and observe and say, oh yeah, look, I like that, I'm gonna keep that. But this other stuff's got to go.
Yep.
So yeah, this is for every human being on this planet, but like I said, as soon as you attain the level of you have your own conscious self and you're responsible for your development, it's just I think everybody owes it to themselves to take a hard look back and see what's serving us and what we need to get rid of.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I
Yeah.
would I would agree with you too. I think Esther said something similar on her podcast where it can be for anyone and everyone, and especially kids. Like we should have a school where we're taught a lot of this stuff because it can help with communication, comprehension, and everything in between.
Yeah. It should be in every high school in every city.
Yeah. It'd be pretty amazing, right? Like, oh my God, can you
Right.
imagine?
Right.
Things
And
would
the
be
teacher be
very
like, all right,
clear for
let's
people.
see how y'all's parents messed y'all up. Come on, let's
Yeah. Let's get
you
into it, boys and girls. Are you
right?
ready?
Yeah,
Who are you? My
right,
name's Sherpa Eric. I'm going to bring you through the dark
right.
forest. I really liked that description. I really did. I really did. Um,
Yeah.
so it's funny too, because I've been looking to memorize Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. You know that one. I shall fear no evil. So I hear that and I'm like, has Speedy been listening into my thoughts?
Right.
All right, last question. Last
Yeah.
question. You have this opportunity to place any phrase, any quote, any words that you want on this billboard, and this billboard is going to be seen by billions of people, everybody in the world. What is it that you would tell those people? What would you put on that billboard for everyone to see?
Oh man, I don't know the exact way I would phrase it, but
Take your time. Take
one
your
of the
time.
one of the favorite things that you have said that I've realized is stop looking outside of yourself
Mm,
to find you. You're inside.
mm,
You're inside. You're there. You've always been there. We're all born with it. We're all born with the same, I feel like the same, soul, for lack of a better term or better word for it. And we all look externally. We all look for the next book, the next audio book, or the next um, you know, alcoholic drink or whatever. We always look outside of ourselves to find what we need when we were born equipped with what we need.
mhm,
We just have to do the work and find it.
mm. I love it.
I don't know if you fit all that in a billboard, but that's what I would say to anybody listening: is stop looking externally for yourself or to find answers for yourself. I mean, there are certain times you need to go find an answer to a certain question about. That's why I sought you out. Like I needed to go find something external. So there are those cases, but for the most part, everything that you need is inside of you. You just have to work to find it.
Mm, mm, mm. I love that, and it's so true too. And to even take it kind of up a level, right? Spiritually, depending on your mode of thinking, everything is connected. So is anything really outside of yourself,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's not, well, in certain modes of thought, it's not. It's just everything is within. So if you can shift within, then what will show without? And
Right.
as within, so without. So,
Yeah. And if you can find that in yourself and you just like for me, like when I'm sitting and meditating now in the morning, like I'm just me, I'm good. I don't really need anything else.
ooh, needing nothing attracts everything.
Yeah. Right.
You know what
It's nice to go buy things, but I don't need anything. All I need is me. I got me.
I mean?
Yeah.
Mm,
And that's what you've taught me realize, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. If that
Yep.
was a gratitude thing,
Yeah.
I'm
It
glad to
was.
have helped that. I'm glad to have helped.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you'd like to share or tell those that are listening before we close out and depart?
Nope. Nope. All good. Just share this. Share this episode with your friends, family. Give my boy some exposure. Like 5 stars, 5 stars. Share it and share this because this is good stuff, man. It's gonna help a lot of people. And if you've been thinking about reaching out to Eric, please reach out to him, man. Please do, because it's a phone call I'm glad I made. It was a lot of work. It was emotionally very difficult. But what came out on the other side was um, just everything, everything, everything I was looking to change about myself for the most part has happened over the past few months. And I'm just excited because I know it's just the beginning for you and I. I know we're going to go a lot deeper, but that's it. Share this.
Thank you. And
Yep.
one thing that I always love to do is to pump up the person that went through it thank you for being here. Thank you for finishing, not only for me, but for you, and then for stepping out, because this stuff, when you finish it, when you go through the complete process, it really demonstrates who you are as a person, which is resilient, which is intelligent, which is adaptable. I think improvisational, meaning, you can shift very quickly. But the biggest one through it all is you're unstoppable, bro. There's
Yeah.
nothing that can stop you. Nothing, because you have everything that you need, and it's all within you, and it's all accessible at all times. And you've become that resourceful man, that resourceful person, that resourceful being, that resourceful spirit that can easily return to source when you need to get yourself up.
Yeah.
So before enlightenment, there's laundry. After enlightenment, there's laundry.
Yep. Yep.
All right, sir.
Great segue because I got to get to work.
Have a great one. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I'll let you know when this thing goes out. And of course, you're unstoppable. Talk to you soon.
All right, man. Yes, sir. Later.